Hey, look who's back. It's Brooke.
Me.
Hi, Brooke.
It's me. Uh-oh.
We got to move.
Hey, look, there's an earthquake that just happened here. Oh, whoa.
It is the Randy Karraker Show featuring Brooke Grimsley, and Sports Hub STL is presented by DraftKings, where the crown is yours. How cool is that? It's fun to have a crown. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you guys?
Everything's great here. Matthew Rocchio is working on that camera there.
Mm-hmm. Getting us nice and purty.
Yeah.
Can you add a filter or two to that, Rocchio, to get us even purtier?
He's
Dang
working
it.
on it.
He's
There
working on it.
isn't.
No.
I need all the filters for myself.
Matt Carpenter announces his retirement. He had a really good career. Matt Carpenter, especially when you think about where he came from. He came up when he came up with the Cardinals, they expected him to be a utility guy.
Mm-hmm.
Winds up winning a World Series ring with the 2011 squad. Only played in 7 games in the regular season there, but did win a World Series ring. Was the best player on a World Series team in 2013. Obviously had the magnificent year in 2018 where he hit the 36 home runs. And Brooke, a career OPS of 814. He was a really good player. Now, people are going to, because as I don't know if you've realized this, people tend to focus on negative.
Recency bias or the negative? You just kind of, what are you doing for me right now? Not what you've done for me.
And he wasn't great down the stretch, but he was a really good player for a pretty long time. And I would congratulate him on having a great career. TCU grad. Mm-hmm. He was drafted by the Cardinals back in 2009 in the 13th round.
And he wasn't expected to do.
No.
Basically, that's what I really like about Matt Carpenter's story, is that it's an underdog story. And you always root for the underdog. And you just talked about when he was drafted. I don't think it was expected that he would be able to reach this level and have the continued success that he did. My favorite Matt Carpenter moment, and that's the question I have for everybody, and you guys can weigh on the chat too this morning, is what is your favorite Matt Carpenter moment? You mentioned the salsa. Salsa time was my favorite because that's when I moved to St. Louis, and that was my first time covering the Cardinals. And that salsa just time period was so exciting. That was a fun clubhouse to be around. Great group of guys, and Matt Carpenter was a big part of that. That was a lot of fun to cover. And the salsa was just such a great story too. It was at Schnucks, wasn't it?
Right, it was, yeah. And he had that one day in Chicago where he hit the 3 home runs and 2 doubles. I think it might be the major league record for total bases in a game. He was just remarkable that season, at least for a couple of months of that season. And I go back, Brooke, to the 2013 season, and it was what was perfect for him because the way people pitched him was perfect. And subsequent to the shift coming into play and people starting to throw 100 miles an hour, he got victimized. Probably no hitter more victimized by the shift and the advent of people pitching you hard inside than Matt Carpenter, because he had 55 doubles in 2013. That was third on the Cardinals all-time list. Joe Medwick had a couple of seasons with 66 and 64 doubles. But Matt Carpenter could hit the ball the other way. And people said, well, why, once people started shifting, why don't you just hit the ball the other way? And I multiple times would go in, and especially because he would try to do it in spring training against BP, and he could do it. And then I'd ask him about it because I was trying to be logical. I said, could you do in 2021 what you did in 2013? Because of the way the game has changed with the shift, could you hit the other way? He said, no, because in 2013, everybody would try to pitch me low and away. And there'd be 94 low and away, and I could just dunk it into left. I could hit it the other way. He said, now everybody's pitching 98 and in. He said, you don't hit that ball the other way. So all you can do is try to turn on it and do damage with it. And so that's what he was trying to do. And he couldn't be the hitter that he was in 2013 by the time we got to 2020, 2021.
Yeah, not what you were to be able to see there. Let's Turn 2 says, does he get a red jacket? 3-time All-Star, 1 Silver Slugger, 1 ring.
I can't imagine that he wouldn't get a red jacket.
I can't imagine either.
Because when you put him on against a group now, when you put those numbers up, and next year, you're probably only going to have 2 people, and we don't even need to vote. It's going to be Yachty and Albert, right? But then once he's out for 3 years, I think you'll look at the list of players on that group to vote on. And I think if you look at the stats, you'll say, yeah, this is easy. He's the guy.
I think so. He'll be a red jacket guy for sure. 100%.
I will vote for him, and I will vouch for him when we have the committee meeting, and then I will put in votes for him too.
For people who don't know, you are part of that committee. So what is it that you guys are looking for when you are getting together, looking at some of the history of the player, stats of a player? What is the stuff that stands out?
Yeah, the great thing about it is there are varying views. Bernie is such a studious voter, and Bernie has all the numbers. Some people are eye test. I look at like a guy like George Hendrick, who was on the ballot this year. In addition to the great numbers, George Hendrick was the power hitter for a world championship team. I look for guys, and by the way, there are people that are all about war. There are some people on that committee that war is what they live for in baseball. There are some people that are able to do a hybrid. Bernie does a lot of the hybrid stuff. I look more at the history of the ball club as I know it, as I've seen it. And so I look at
impact in certain games, moments, all that.
Championships. A guy like Jack Clark. I can't believe that we haven't gotten Jack Clark to the ballot yet, because I think he is a Cardinal Hall of Famer. Mark McGwire never played on a championship team, but nobody made a bigger impact on the organization than Mark McGwire did. Yes, Matthew.
Randy, in your opinion, what is war good for?
That's a good song. So
war is somebody was going to do it at a certain point.
Yeah, you got to answer the question.
If you can find, here's
absolutely nothing.
Well, first of all,
say it again.
Who has the greatest war of all time in baseball? Right? Who?
It's Barry Bonds, isn't it? Yeah, or Babe Ruth.
Yeah, Babe Ruth.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. It's either.
Let's see.
Maybe Barry passed him.
It's either Barry Bonds or Babe Ruth.
I think it is Babe Ruth.
I don't need war to tell me who the best players.
Babe Ruth, Walter Johnson, Cy Young, Barry Bonds, Willie Mays in your top 5. Ty Cobb, 6.
Yeah. So I didn't need war to tell me that Babe Ruth was the best player of all time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because it just the war sometimes isn't account for everything, but it just makes sense in a lot of ways.
And what teams use it for is ranking players, so that they can say, so I knew that Babe Ruth was the best player of all time. Somebody felt a need to put that in math.
Yeah.
Right. And the problem is that you've got Baseball Reference war, and then you've got Fangraphs war. So you've got different wars too.
Yeah.
And some are better than others.
You're saying math isn't fun. And so we
shouldn't.
Is not fun. There is times where some analytics are fun, but then when it gets too mathy, we like that official term.
Here to me, Brooke, is the essence of the problem, is that people try to compare Mike Trout and Albert Pujols. And they say, well, Mike Trout has a greater WAR, but he's got a greater WAR because he didn't swing the bat, because he took walks. And Albert actually swung the bat and drove in runs.
And that's where the eye test comes in that you're talking about.
Right. You have to pay attention to those sorts of things, in my opinion. And so I would, I appreciate the people that are trying to do the math to come up with the ideal statistic to grade every player. I think another problem we have with analytics is, how do you judge Yadier Molina? It's impossible. For the math people to figure out what Yadier Molina meant to the Cardinals.
But if you were watching the Cardinals, and if you're just a fan of baseball in general, and you were able to watch Yadier Molina's dominance, but especially as a Cardinal fan, I think that we all know the impact that he had as a catcher with throwing out runners, what he was able to do, calling a game behind the plate. He was elite at that, and really managing the pitchers, which is something that a lot of people just do not value that much, or even care about that much with catchers anymore.
And that was huge. That was a huge part of his career.
Do you need more stats than the one where it's stolen bases allowed over the last 13-year period?
Great stat.
And it's the Cardinals have allowed 600, and the next closest has allowed 1,300. I don't know if you need more stats than that to just quantify the greatness of Yadier Molina.
Yeah, that's a great point. He was sensational. So you look at the career of Matt Carpenter, 22nd all time. Matt Carpenter, more career WAR than Scott Rowland, and this is with the Cardinals, Willie McGee, Matt Holliday, Paul Goldschmidt, Joe Torre, Brian Jordan, Mark McGwire. Marp had more career WAR than all of those Cardinals. So if you're looking at it from that perspective, if you want to use the WAR perspective, then you'd say, okay, Matt Carpenter's got to be a Cardinal Hall of Famer. By the way, the position players ahead of Marp, again, 22nd, Ed Konechny, Bill White, Marty Marion, Frankie Frisch, Hernandez, Jim Bottomley, Red, Ray Langford, Johnny Mize, Jimmy Baseball, Medwick, Molina, Brock, Flood, Simmons, Slaughter, Boyer, Smith, Pujols, Hornsby, Musial. So he's in really good company, Matt Carpenter. And I think he's an easy choice for the Red Jack. And I know people didn't like the way things ended for him here because he didn't perform. But one thing we saw, Brooke, you talk about a beloved teammate. The Goldie and Arenado went to management and said, we want to bring this guy in here because he can make a difference behind the scenes in our clubhouse.
Because remember, we talked about the other day, those comments from Nolan Arenado about the young guys kind of overrunning the clubhouse. And so they wanted Matt Carpenter to come in there, be a more veteran player presence, like a player coach, essentially. And I think a lot of people, it's the recency bias. That's what we were talking about earlier of, well, I just remember they brought him back for really no reason. Like you see those comments come in. It's the recency bias of that. But if you look at the stretch of his career, and especially his career with the Cardinals, that's huge. That's huge. And what he's done for so many fans, memory-wise, just seeing all the memories pour in of what people are saying, you have to remember that, not how it ended with the Cardinals.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons that it's a good thing to have the value of, for Cardinals, you need to get into the Cardinal Hall of Fame 3 years removed from being able to play. And whether it takes 3 or more, he does deserve. I mean, look how long it took Edgar Renteria.
Yeah.
And Edgar Renteria was a stud. And now he's going into the Cardinal Hall of Fame. I think time has a tendency to give us a greater appreciation of guys like this.
Ellipsis 150 says, having Jack Clark and Albert Pujols together in the Cardinals Hall of Fame is going to be a little awkward. Yeah. Do you want to tell the story about that
Yeah.
a little bbit? Because Jack Clark accused Albert Pujols of using steroids.
Yeah, he did. And then he asked him if he had proof, and Albert threatened to sue. And yeah, it was kind of a mess. Yeah.
I think that you definitely during your time, you've heard whispers of certain players who have used roids. And we know the time period where that was really prevalent.
Yeah.
Albert Pujols wasn't a part of that in any way whatsoever.
And he was so strident in denying it, pointing out, I think in a famous interview with Sports Illustrated, that he wanted to be a role model, but then put his money where his mouth was when he threatened to go to court. And he was prepared to go to court to defend himself. And if you have to go and you have to go in and speak under oath about it, and you're willing to do it, and you're willing to say, nope, I never took them, then I think that's it.
I will say, watching Albert in his final season, it was all the work and preparation he did behind the scenes. And maybe that's just what it was. I had never seen anybody put in as much work like Albert Pujols. And so it made sense why he was able to perform so well on the field. I mean, his final season with the Cardinals, at his age, he still was doing more, I felt like, than some of the younger guys.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. That's what made him Albert.
Yeah.
He was spectacular, and he was able to pass that along. And that's one thing that a guy like in that 2011 season that I think Matt Carpenter really took note of, is that Albert was a guy that you keep an eye on and you watch, because Marp was another guy who really prepared heavily. One time, by the way, he won a bet. I don't even remember what the bet was. We can Google it. But he won a bet with Waino, and Waino had to buy him a TCU painted golf cart.
Yeah, I remember that story.
Yeah, it might have been that 2018 season.
Waino loved pranks.
Yeah.
He loved pranks behind the scenes.
He did some pranks. Yeah. He was great.
And it was also Waino's garden that he got some of the ingredients for the salsa
That's
Matt
exactly
Carpenter
right.
did
That's
for
how
that
it started.
salsa season.
Yeah.
That's where that comes from. Treehouse says, end of an era, the Kershaw killer.
Yeah. Yeah. He was one of them.
He was one of
Matt
them.
I thought Fat Adams was.
Matt
Adams.
What? It's PH.
Oh, Jumbo
the
Pepsi.
cool- the
Big
cool
City.
version.
Yeah, Fat
Yeah.
Adams. Like,
Okay.
come on now.
Like
yeah.
cool
Cool
version
Adams.
of it.
I'm
I
sorry.
thought we were fat shaming on this
the
show.
fact that
We were too.
the fact that you assumed that I was fat shaming him,
I was just
coming from a big fella myself,
I was
a little insulting to me, Brooke. How
I didn't
dare
know
you?
that we were fat shaming on this show.
No.
So, I mean, I know that some people want to fat shame us on this show.
Fat
I'm
shaming.
pregnant
Okay,
once again.
clear line
But-
between the two things. Fat Adams, not fat shaming. Tubby Senko, fat shaming.
There's
a
a guy,
line there between those two things.
There was a guy that played on my high school football team. Speaking of fat shaming, actual fat shaming,
Mhm.
like the old school version, not so cool. His name was Kankles, and I never learned his real name. Guess what position he played?
Defensive tackle.
He was actually O lineman, and his name was Kankles.
I like
Big
that.
dude, big O lineman, and I never learned his real name.
Oh, wow.
To this day, no idea. And he even got Kankles tattooed on his back, because I don't know if it was like,
Uh-huh.
you know, that was popular for a while to get your last name tattooed on your
Yeah,
back for
right.
men. and he got Cankles tattooed. No idea what his name is. So that's when he kind of embraced the fat shaming. That's how you turn the story around into your own benefits.
That you got to embrace the criticism and kind of joke around with it sometimes.
You do, yes.
By the way, it was 2015. Marp hit 20 home runs, and when he hit his 20th, Wayno bought him a TCU-themed golf cart with the TCU logo on the side, and then underneath the TCU logo, it says, "Number 50 is my hero." So
that is so funny. That's a nice golf cart.
Yeah, just Google it. It is a very nice golf cart.
Very
so
nice.
good.
You see, when you have a lot of money, you can do fun pranks like that where a lot more money is involved.
Yes, you can.
A lot more money is involved. Bub says, I could see Mark becoming a coach in Major League Baseball.
I could too.
He has the disposition to teach. I think so too. And that was when we were talking about Arenado and Goldschmidt going to the team and asking for him to be back. That was part of it. Right? Matt Carpenter could be around to really help things in the clubhouse. I could see him being a great coach.
His dad,
manager.
A high school coach, longtime legendary high school coach, as a matter of fact, one-time national coach of the year. And Marp lives in Texas within proximity to TCU. I could see him either coaching high school ball or at TCU too. I don't think there's any doubt that he would have interest in that down the road. But he's got young kids too, and I think that, like baseball players that have the wherewithal to do it, he wants to spend time with his family.
Yeah, I don't blame him whatsoever.
So people want to ask me what I think about. We're going to talk about the Hall of Fame. The Cardinals do have a doubleheader coming up, little afternoon, and then tonight at 5:15, and they're going to pitch Fetty in the day game and Gray in the night game and try to extend their winning streak to 10 or maybe even 11 if you're into that sort of thing. And I am bummed out that the momentum was stopped by the rain yesterday.
It looks like, too, just based off of what I was seeing on social media this morning, it might be a little rainy again today.
No.
I just based what I was seeing, some of the photos. Have you guys seen that, too, on social media of the people who are out there? And by the way, we are talking to John Denton of MLB.com, who is out there today.
Boots on
and
the
maybe
ground.
he can give us boots on the ground journalism.
Rain boots on the ground.
Are we worried specifically about sunny in the rain?
Yeah, we are.
He can't bring the sunshine in the rain. You're right.
Yep.
That is something that we should be concerned about.
Sunshine in the rain.
See, I was gonna go with more like around the third inning. I can see clearly now.
Rain is gone.
Sonny does not like it when his routine is thrown off.
Oh no.
Do you think it's odd though that they switched then? With Greg taking the night game after technically being in line to do the day game if you go in order.
I'm not surprised by that. You give him as much time to get his routine in place as possible, and try to do everything you can to have him avoid being thrown off.
And we talked about this earlier on Cards Hub 365. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it. The lineup is out. Herrera is DHing the first game with Fetty pitching, and considering it's against Nola and it's Sonny Gray on the mound, I don't expect him to be behind the plate. But we know that the Cardinals were going to try to get him behind the plate. Why do you think we're seeing Herrera DHing this first game? And do you expect to see him catch Sonny Gray in the second game?
I would not expect him to catch the second game. I would expect that the Cardinals, if they're going to catch Herrera, the team probably to look at is next week against Detroit. Detroit does not try to steal much, and they don't steal many bases. So I think I'd be more inclined, if I were the Cardinals, to want to have him go against the Tigers. Tigers only have 18 stolen bases all year long. Philadelphia, not that they are electrifying like the Brewers or Milwaukee, but Philadelphia has a tendency to run a little bit more. They've stolen 37, been thrown out 8 times. And I think the Cardinals want to probably find those games against teams that don't run an awful lot, and that's the place to use Herrera.
I think so, and I think that's how they're going to manage him moving forward, just based off of what we've been talking about. Herrera's bat plays, but you do have to worry about those teams that will run on you. And if they know that they have that ability against Herrera behind the plate when he is behind the plate, then you do have to kind of pick and choose. I do want to give Ollie Marmol a lot of credit for what he has been able. I do want to give Ollie Marmol some credit here. We can't do that on this show.
Yes.
Is it not allowed? Is it illegal?
I mean, we're apologizing to Mo one show.
I saw
we're
that
giving,
went
we're giving
swimmingly.
credit to
Yeah,
Ollie.
that went
Jeez,
swimmingly.
I see the pitchforks on the horizon
Yeah,
right now.
but
Let's just,
I do want to go ahead.
All you have to do is send in on the chat, just say yes or no to Brooke. Should she give credit to Ollie or not? Now she's going to anyway, but should she or not?
And refrain from bad words. Just say yes or no, please. Okay. Yes or no. But I think that we should give Ollie some credit here because I was worried, and I think we discussed this at length about how exactly he would manage the roster construction with this group.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to get guys enough at bats? How are you going to give players enough runway where you're able to evaluate them with Nolan Arenado still around? Remember, there was rumors too of Wilson Contreras possibly trying to move him during the offseason, so they couldn't move Arenado. They couldn't move Wilson Contreras. They even thought about kicking the can on moving Sonny Gray. Those trade rumors were out there too during the offseason, and they didn't do anything in free agency other than sign Phil Maton. So the way that Ollie has been able to manage this really clustered roster construction and have this team in a position where they've won 9 straight. Now they're getting national attention and people are starting to buy into what they're doing. He does deserve a lot of credit for that.
I will give him credit for that. By the way, just an incredible amount of yeses here. You should give him credit.
Yes.
Yes.
See?
Matthew.
Nobody's yelling at me.
Are we doing a poll?
Are we doing a
No,
poll
I was just going to do what you did. I'm just running down the fact that we're getting. Everyone is saying we got.
Well, not Jambo, who
Xavier
says no,
Speck.
no, and no.
Xavier Speck said some, but not at all. Chris Quisenberry says he's actually letting the starters go later in the game.
Yes.
Yeah, Jambo is the one truly negative person, but there's a lot of positivity from here. Bach Hogg kind of walking the fence. He's not stopping the team from winning.
Do you think that maybe if this is a little bit later onto the season that people would want to give him a little bit more credit? And I'm talking about in July. After the All-Star break, that's when people buy into things a little bit more of what a team really is. But I think that nobody, and I personally was not expecting this, and I don't think that many people were, that they'd be able to do this, especially with Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman. If you would have told me by now that Nolan Gorman and Jordan Walker still aren't doing great at the plate, I would say, wow, this is going to be a really rough season, But the way that he's managed this roster construction, which was not easy to do, because we've discussed this at length of the DH position had been struggling, and you're getting Herrera back, which is huge, but even Pozo coming up, that being a surprise, him managing all of that, I think you do have to give him a lot of credit. And Brant Brown, the way that he's been able to implement his approach at the plate has obviously paid off for this group.
I wonder, Brooke, if, and yes, the starters have become much more efficient. In 3 of those 4 consecutive games where the starters went 7 innings, the pitcher was in the 90s and still went 7 innings. And then you had Fetty throw 109. But I do wonder if Ollie is kind of starting to take things into his own hands here. Do you wonder that when you watch this team play?
I think so, because this is John Mozeliak's last season as the president of baseball operations. While he does have the security of the extension, that doesn't really mean much, does it? No. It doesn't whatsoever. Just because you have an extension doesn't mean anything. And there's a new person who's coming in. So you're trying to impress your new boss. And he's showing, this is what I have the ability to do if you give me runway, not just the players, but if you give me runway.
And every coach that gets fired eventually says, after they get fired, they said, you know what? If I'm going to go down, I'm going down my way.
Yeah. And
there's no way that Mo is getting rid of Ollie this year. They're not going to have, he's not going to get fired for philosophical differences. And Ollie will tell you, even in and Ollie is very honest, sometimes to a fault with the media off the record. But he, on and off the record, he will tell you, no, he never complains about the lineup being forced or foisted upon him. And I do think that he does get probably more ability to manage the team than we give him credit for. But there's also no doubt that the games are scripted out. If you listen to him, even if you listen to him in a post-game press conference, you can tell that the game is scripted out.
Well, that isn't that the way that things go now in general. Even
Yeah.
Dave Roberts, who I mean
Yeah.
has the best job in all of Major League Baseball as a manager, he's even talked about how this is a collaborative effort between front offices. That's kind of the expectations with managers now, is that you have to be collaborative with the front office and the analytics behind the scenes. You mentioned too that he revealed to you that they even have it charted out which days off the players get.
Yeah.
So analytics is involved in the process of making the lineups, who's in and out, how they use guys in engage different situations and stuff like that.
Yeah, he did not decide or will not decide in the third inning today whether a guy is going to play in the second game or not.
Yeah.
They all got together last night or yesterday when the rainout was announced, he and his coaching staff, and because everything was thrown off, and they have built-in off days for every player 2, 3, 4 weeks ahead. So what they did is, I'm sure they got together and they revised what they would have to do in regard to who gets off days, who plays today. To Matthew's question, does Herrera get an opportunity to catch him? My guess would be, and we won't know until the Cardinals get home next week, but you've got the Detroit series, and then you've got Baltimore right after that. So in your next 12 games, 6 of them are against teams in the bottom 4 in stolen base attempts. I would guess that is where you're going to see Herrera behind the plate.
I think so.
Sometime in those next dozen games, he might get 3 or 4 opportunities.
And that's what you can do. That is the good side of having too many guys, is that you can mix and match depending on the opponent. Right? Is that you do have that ability. So this was a question that I wanted to ask everybody today too, because if you guys saw, now that the Cardinals are getting more attention nationally, people are starting to talk about it, including Bob Nightengale, who seems like, as soon as I saw him tweet the other day, and you know, people on social media will get this too, about the Cardinals win streak, everybody in the comments like, no, Bob tweeted about it, because there's just a history of him talking about a win streak or something like that, and then it breaks it. But still, now the Cardinals are getting national attention. And Bob Nightengale tweeted out, weren't the Cardinals supposed to be rebuilding this year? They just won their 9th consecutive game, and they're 23-19, just half a game out of first place. So was this ever a true rebuild season for the Cardinals?
To go back to the point that you made about them desiring to move on from Arenado, Contreras, and Gray, I think they thought it was going to be a rebuild season. But once those guys wound up being here, then it changed, because you don't use those guys to rebuild. And I do think, to the credit of the organization, they didn't want to have the team be horrible with those players on it. So look at right now, the fact that Gorman isn't getting as many at-bats, the fact that Burleson isn't getting as many at-bats, that you're playing the hot hands, that you're allowing the starting pitching to get opportunities, that you aren't trying to force Michael McGreevy into the major leagues right away, that you're using those veteran starters. I believe that the Cardinals are trying, and the term that Mozeliak used with Katie Wu is trying to straddle the fence between still developing but still trying to win too.
Transition season. I think that it was a true rebuild behind the scenes. I think it was a renovation behind the scenes, because we have this new era coming in. If you remember, after last season, Michael Gersh, who has served as the GM for the Cardinals,
now director of special projects
in Jupiter, Florida, which isn't a bad gig from 2017 to 2024. He was reassigned to that role. So you had Michael Gersh demoted, even though they said it in a nicer way than I just said with demoted. Gary LaRocque moving on from the organization was huge. His retirement happening. He had been with the organization since 2008 and had overseen the team's farm system for 12 seasons, and then he retired. So it was a rebuild behind the scenes internally. They were able to accomplish that. Now you bring in Chaim Bloom, the Pobo in waiting, and you have Rob Cerfolio coming in. So you have this new era ushering in behind the scenes in the front office at an executive level. And I think they wanted it to be a rebuild on the field, to your point. They tried to move on from guys, but then it just didn't work out that way, because they have a say in where they go.
Yeah, but you make a great point, because you can also rebuild your organization, and they're doing that with the people that you referenced, in addition to Cerfolio hiring a new minor league director in Larry Day, and hiring a new minor league pitching director in Matt Pierpont, and hiring a new catching instructor in Ethan Goforth. The Cardinals have added people from they also added a new director of performance from the Doyers. So these are people that are coming from very successful organizations that are trying to do what the Cardinals, that are doing what the Cardinals are trying to do. When you get people from Cleveland, like Cerfolio and Day, when you get people from the Dodgers, when you get people from the especially the pitching side of the Mariners, you're doing pretty well. So I think your point is very well taken there, that the Cardinals while not rebuilding on the field, are doing so off the field. And then one other point, your former hockey team, before you became a massive Blues fan, your Nashville Predators. Remember a couple of years ago when they talked about doing a competitive rebuild?
Yeah.
Now, it didn't really work out that well for
No,
them.
it didn't.
But the Cardinals never used that phrase. But isn't that pretty accurate? They're doing a competitive rebuild?
Yeah, they are doing a competitive rebuild because I don't think you can do ever here in St. Louis, especially with the Cardinals, a complete tear down. And that's what I think of with a rebuild, is that you're going to have to tear something down to build something new. I don't think you could ever do that within the Cardinals organization. And I see people in the chat saying, that they never explicitly said rebuild. You're right. It just seems like the national media perspective was that this was some sort of rebuild, even though that Nolan Arenado stayed and Sonny Gray stayed and Wilson Contreras stayed. On the field, it hasn't been much of a rebuild, but more of giving these players an opportunity to grow while still having some of those veterans in place.
And the way I look at a rebuild is kind of like a rebuilt house. You tear it down and you rebuild.
Yes.
And the Cardinals haven't torn things down here like the Cubs did when they got rid of all of their veterans, or like the Astros did, or like the Orioles did. This has never been, and the Cardinals would never do a rebuild because, heck, this is a competitive rebuild and people aren't showing up. What would happen if the Cardinals would go down to the bottom for 3 or 4 years?
It would be awful.
Yeah.
It would be absolutely awful. Nobody would stick around for that.
What's the opposite of awful?
The opposite of awful is good.
How about
gooder?
Gooder, great.
Greatness.
That's the trashed wings at Fenton Bar and Grill.
I was not expecting that. That transition was just threw me through a loop. I was not expecting that whatsoever.
If you want absolute deliciousness, there it is. Those trashed wings there on the left are the best wings that you will ever have in your entire lifetime. Get them with that signature golden sauce that you're seeing poured deliciously on right in the middle, or you can get it with ranch and have a fantastic meal with just the wings alone. And you're going to love the staff over at the Fenton Bar and Grill. Megan and Colleen and the whole gang over there. Say hi to them. They're great to have you serve, and they're going to take care of you. And when you go to Fenton Bar and Grill, it's not just the fabulous wings, but see the toasted rab there? Fabulous. I don't know why it is, but I love the tater tots at Fenton Bar and Grill. They're absolutely delicious. They have great sandwiches, great burgers, wonderful wraps and salads. So whenever you're looking for a great place to have some food, maybe it's after a round of golf, maybe it's for a business lunch, maybe it's for a nice dinner, stop by the Fenton Bar and Grill, say hi to the 2024 Maitre d' of the Year, Chuck, and you'll have a great time. It's the dive with a vibe. Matthew, you got something to add here about the Fenton Bar and Grill? First time Matthew and I ever met, I think, was at the Fenton Bar and Grill.
Yes, it was.
Romantic.
Fantastic meeting, fantastic meal as usual. I was just going to throw out a sports grub STL topic that I thought of as soon as we started doing this read. Do you guys have a preference between drums and flats when it comes to your wings?
It's not a huge preference, but if I had to choose one or the other, I'd go flats. But I don't really have a major preference.
I don't have a major preference. I like both. But I think flats, just because it feels like I get more meat out of it, if that makes any sense. I don't know. Sometimes it can be kind of equal, but...
Do you do how do you eat the flat? Do you do the twist method where you split them apart, or you just go?
The bone cracking just grosses me out. I know that I can see the bone, but if I don't, it's the sound of it just really freaks me out.
You just put it in your mouth?
No,
that's what I do.
I just nibble like.
Oh, okay. Like
you just work around them.
Yeah, I can't now. A lot of people, and I've seen it, do the full wing in the mouth pull out.
That's what I do. Yeah.
And then I have seen the crack method. I just can't. I can't.
The crack
do
method
the crack
is.
Method.
It's the best.
I don't do crack
because because it's really simple. You just take where the joint where the two sides of the flat meat, you just twist it, and then when you do that, the two bones separate and the meat falls right off. It's perfect.
So when you go to the Fenton Bar and Grill, they're accepting of any way you want to eat your wings. They're very accepting people. You'll love the crowd. It's a sports crowd over at the Fenton Bar and Grill, just 2 minutes from the soccer park. When you go, tell them Randy sent you to the Fenton Bar and Grill. It's a great place to go.
So our rules on this show that we have just kind of decided, it always goes back to food and it always goes back to death. And before we get to John Denton, we need to talk about Pete Rose. Pete Rose is dead, by the way, and he has been reinstated by Major League Baseball. So he is now eligible for the Hall of Fame. So is shoeless Joe Jackson, but he's been dead for a really long time.
Really long time,
But
yeah.
Pete Rose, more recently dead. Food and death. That's what it always goes back to on the Randy Karraker show. So how is everybody feeling about this? I saw some people on the chat weighing in at the very beginning. So
Yes.
we can circle back to that. A lot of people have a lot of differing opinions. It's weird to me, just personally. My first thought when I saw this is he's dead. What's the point?
Well, it was a lifetime ban, and the lifetime is over. So he's not banned anymore.
But it's just weird to me. It's weird that you wait till after he dies to then reinstate him.
I think that
That's
Rob Manfred,
weird.
First of all, I think it was personal for Bud Selig when he was the commissioner, because he blamed Pete Rose for the death of Bart Giamatti. But I think now, because Pete Rose isn't with us anymore, I don't think if Pete Rose were still alive that this would have happened. I think that the commissioner of baseball right now, Rob Manfred, is doing Bud Selig's bidding and probably making a PR move here and probably using some logic too. And oh, by the way, this is not, I think they say it in New York, not for nothing. The president asked Rob Manfred to have Pete Rose reinstated.
I think that makes more sense than the timing of the death. I know that sounds weird, but I think that makes more sense is because the president of the United States did say that he would like him to be reinstated, and this happens. I think there was also the governor of California, or somebody in California, politician-wise, also sent a letter to Rob Manfred trying to get him reinstated. The Rule 21 that you're referring to about the lifetime ban, it states that permanently ineligible. So that's even past lifetime.
That is permanent. Yeah.
That's permanently ineligible.
And I think that Rose, and I'm not sure about this, but he agreed to a different ban with Bart Giamatti. He signed a document that I think was a lifetime ban. It might have been a permanent ban. I'm not sure. But still, as Manfred said when he made the announcement, when he dies, it doesn't matter anymore. And I really do. I don't think the way that this is set up, this is not going to be a fair setup when they put this panel of 16 voters together to allow Rose to be voted on for the Hall of Fame. I don't see any way that he gets 12 of the 16 votes.
That's what I felt like too, is because as we all know, with the Hall of Fame, while controversial, it is up to the writers, the Baseball Writers Association, to be able to pick. Well, the 16
for new players.
New players. And so it felt like it was more of putting it in their hands to be the good or bad guys deciding if he gets in or not.
Yeah, and this group will include Hall of Famers, and those guys, they don't want Pete Rose. I don't think even Johnny Bench wants Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. And part of it is, I think they would have accepted him as a Hall of Famer, as a player, as a manager, if he had shown some contrition. I think that the fact that he was so adamant for such a long time that he didn't gamble and then signed baseballs that said, I bet on baseball.
In his 2004 autobiography, he admitted to it.
Right. And then would publicly say no. I think that really hurt him. And I do think, to connect dots here, players were offended that went into the Hall of Fame when Pete Rose would set up shop in Cooperstown. They've got a main drag in Cooperstown, and he would set up shop and sign autographs there. I think it was more financially beneficial for Pete Rose, to be the ostracized non-Hall of Famer than to be a Hall of Famer.
I was talking to my dad about this last night because I told him, I was like, I don't really know personally exactly how to feel about this. You can't erase him from baseball history. And it is important to note that there is plenty of stuff that he is recognized for in the Baseball Hall of Fame. It's not like he's not there in the Baseball Hall of Fame. It's just if he actually can get into the Hall of Fame. So it's not like you can erase him from history. That would be impossible. So he is recognized in that way. But should he be a Hall of Famer is the big thing, because Rule 21 is very explicit in what you should and shouldn't be able to do. To your point, too, he denied it and then completely admitted it. But my dad's argument to this, and I think how a lot of people feel, is, well, now gambling's a part of every sport. Gambling is not taboo anymore whatsoever. But the question is,
it still is for players.
And for managers. It explicitly says that you are not allowed to gamble on the games.
If you are employed by a major league team, in whatever role, if you're the janitor at Busch Stadium, you can't gamble.
Even if you're the janitor at Busch Stadium? That doesn't seem fair.
No, that's part of what you sign up for, though.
They're trying to protect the integrity of the game.
They are. And this is what Rob Manfred wrote in his release. Obviously, a person no longer with us cannot represent a threat to the integrity of the game. He said, moreover, it is hard to conceive of a penalty that has more deterrent effect than one that lasts a lifetime with no reprieve. Therefore, I have concluded, Rob Manfred, that permanent ineligibility ends upon the passing of the disciplined individual, and Mr. Rose will be removed from the permanently ineligible list. I am more intrigued, and we're going to get to John Denton, by the way, in about 4 minutes here. I'm more intrigued by how they vote for Shoeless Joe Jackson.
I keep seeing people in the chat asking this too, of this could be Ben saying Shoeless should get in, never proven that he took money. Rose knowingly broke the rules. He doesn't deserve to get in.
Shoeless Joe Jackson couldn't read. He was illiterate. He signed his baseball banishment by writing an X. He hit 375 in that World Series. He had more hits than anybody in that series. As a matter of fact, he had the hit record for hits in a World Series from 1919. It wasn't broken until 1964. He drove in runs. Now, there were pitchers apparently from the 1919 team, pitchers that were on the take, that said, no, he didn't hustle after some of the hits that were hit out there. But his overall performance, errorless, is one where if you look at the numbers, you say, there's no way that he was throwing this. So if I am in that room, I think I would have a tendency, if somebody said you can only vote for one of these guys to be in the Hall of Fame, Rose or Jackson, I would vote for Jackson to be in the Hall of Fame before Pete Rose.
You believe that he had less involvement.
Do.
You do think that he was involved, or do you think,
I think
he wasn't?
Joe Jackson probably, like everybody else on that team, knew what was going on. There's a great book about this called 8 Men Out that I read. I read a book, yes. Thank you. But I think that he knew, but I don't think he participated. And Brooke, I just don't think he was smart enough.
That he would even know the gravity of what he would be and get involved in, with your point of him being illiterate. I've also seen people discuss too about if this would open up the door for the steroid guys. So if you let in Pete Rose, Shoeless Joe Jackson, does this make it more acceptable to then let in the roid guys?
See, and the roid guys have already had their 10 years on the ballot, plus they've gone to the special committee and been denied. I'll be very surprised if the people, again, in that panel allow Pete Rose to be in the Hall of Fame. I think Joe Jackson is a different and unique case, but I would be absolutely stunned if the voters, and this won't happen until 27, by the way, December of 27, that they'll vote on Pete Rose. But I think one of two things, well, maybe they'll both happen. I think any panel of people in baseball would probably vote against Pete Rose, but I also think the panel is going to be stacked against him.
Yeah. Well, and then you also have Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina who will be eligible that year. Is it bad that I don't want it to happen the same time as Albert and Yadi, because I feel like it would just take away from anybody
that's not
getting
a
in
bad
the
thing.
Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
that's
not a bad thing.
Because it's just, even as you mentioned, even when he was alive, it was a distraction.
Right.
That he was always around, and that conversation always comes up. And then now that he's eligible for being on the Hall of Fame ballot at the same time as them, then that's going to be the story.
Right. Yeah. I would be shocked if he would get in. Our buddy John Denton is with us now from Philly. John is a veteran writer and a great fan and observer of the sport. I want to see John Denton's mug from that ballpark, the bank in Philadelphia. Bank. There he is. How you doing? He's in a back room. It must be raining there. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Randy. Yeah, sadly, I'm tucked into a PR room. The rain has stopped. The tarp is still on the field, but we got to get through like 1:30 here local time. If we can get through that, I think we can get 2 games in. But, man, it's been ugly all morning. It's been pouring here all morning.
Hey, I want to did you hear what we were just talking about with Rose and his chances for the Hall? What do you think?
Yeah. You know, Pete Rose is a Hall of Fame baseball player, no doubt about it. I love me some Pete Rose back in the day. I loved everything about him, the way he hustled on walks, the way he, dove into third base, belly first, the way he ran over catchers. I loved everything about him. Pete Rose is not a Hall of Fame person at all. I mean, we all know that. There are a lot of skeletons in that closet. I say put him in. But the plaque needs to read that, hey, this guy gambled on baseball, and that's the number one sin in baseball that you cannot do. We all know he was a Hall of Fame player. Everybody, there's no doubt about that. They're just, he was not a Hall of Fame person in any regard, but, put him in and say, hey, here's why he didn't go in until now. He broke one of the cardinal sins of baseball, but there's no doubt that he's definitely a Hall of Fame player.
Now, I would, and I think just so that people know, I feel the same way as you. I would have him. I would have a plaque for Pete Rose. I would vote for him. I was saying to Brooke, if you gave me a choice between Rose and Shoeless Joe, I would go with Shoeless Joe. But if I'm in the room, I'm voting for Pete Rose because of what you just said. But do you think, and you know people that are going to be on that panel, I know people that are going to be on that panel, Brooke knows people that are going to be on that panel. Do you think that baseball and the Hall of Fame will allow that panel to vote Pete Rose into the Hall of Fame?
I think they will. I think,
No.
I think there's a push to get him in. I think, there's a groundswell of people who are angry that he's not in. We all know he deserves to be in there as a player. But, I mean, if you watch 5 minutes of the documentary that HBO ran last year, it's like, you just feel like you need to take a shower after you even think about Pete Rose or talk about Pete Rose. I mean, but his talent, his hustle, his impact on the game was undeniable as a baseball player. So I think the lifelong baseball people, they will vote for Pete Rose because he was that level of a player. They will kind of hold their nose as they turn in their ballot, but they will, everybody believes that he is a Hall of Fame baseball player, and he is.
I know that's the tough part though, and kind of the counter argument is that he denied it at first, and then he definitely made it really clear that he gambled. I mean, it was in his 2004. Yeah, it was in his 2004 autobiography, and it's not like he's erased from history. He's still recognized in the Hall of Fame. It's not like you can completely erase what Pete Rose has done for the game of baseball. I just wonder if this would open up Pandora's box of, does this also mean that we look at the roid guys too, the roid era, and the ones that we know for a fact that were involved with that?
Yeah, I mean, Brooke, we're a forgiving society. America will forgive you if you'll come out and say, "Hey, I had a weak moment. I did wrong. Admit it. Fall on the sword." Pete Rose would have been in the Hall of Fame already if he would have just done that. But he went 25 years and he waited till he could sell a book to do it. We all know that Pete wouldn't cross the street unless there was a dollar involved. So if it was an autograph signing or a book to put out, Pete was in on anything. But if he would have just come out originally and said, "Hey, I did this, I'm wrong, please let me back in," America would have forgiven him and he would have already been in the Hall of Fame. But Pete's ego, as usual, got in the way.
Matt Carpenter, the big story this morning, announcing that he will be retiring. I know that you were able to talk to some of the players and Ollie Marmol before things get started over there. What were they saying about Matt Carpenter and his retirement?
Ollie's first line was, "My goodness, it's about time." And then after we all laughed, then he said, no, I'm just playing. I love that guy. But he talked about Matt's obsessiveness of how he just would hit till his hands bleed. He was roommates with Matt Carpenter. He said he hated Matt because he would wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning. He'd be drinking coffee and reading a book at 6:15 in the morning. And they, some of them had just gone to bed at that time of the morning. But he said every day you showed up at the ballpark, you knew Matt Carpenter was going to be the most prepared guy there. He had watched the most film. He had taken the most BP. And that's why he came through in big moments. Nothing surprised him. And that's how he got the most out of his career, because he was so incredibly prepared, so dedicated to the craft, consumed. Ollie even told a story this morning. Matt said at some of his heights of his career, when he hit 36 home runs in 2018, that's when he was the most miserable, because it just hitting consumed every part of him. And that's all he could think about. He obsessed over hitting. So, tip of a hat to a great career for a great Cardinal. I know a lot of Cardinal fans got down on him late in his career, but I mean, look at his highs. Some of his highs were just off the charts. The way he tortured the Cubs for years, the way he could rise to the occasion in the playoffs with big hits. So, a credit to Matt Carpenter for a fine career.
And we don't talk about it in this term enough, but he actually arrived on the scene right after Albert left. So you had Holiday, and then he finishes fourth in the MVP voting in 2013. He was one of the people that kind of followed in the footsteps of both Albert Pujols and then eventually Lance Berkman too.
Yeah, and he was one of those players. He was better in the big games than he was the everyday games. Like, he was a better playoff performer than he was a regular season performer. He knew how to dial it up. He didn't care if Clayton Kershaw was on the mound in a big game against him. Carp would deliver, and like we said, he was the most prepared. He had taken the most swings. He'd watched the most video. So Ollie said, as a teammate, you always knew you were good with him because you knew Carp was going to be ready for any situation thrown at him.
Hey, John, I think it's interesting. Obviously, the team is hot. They've won 9 in a row, and they're over 500 a game out of first place. But if you look at the individuals, pretty much every individual outside of Walker and Gorman is better, and in many cases, significantly better this year than they were last year. Did the coaching staff changes make that dramatic of a difference? Did it, hiring Jay, second year for Descalso, Brant Brown, when you look at Arenado being better, Wynn is actually better than he was in his rookie year. Donovan is better. Nootbaar is better. Victor Scott's way better. Herrera is better. Is that a credit to the coaching staff, or is this the maturation of the players? Why are these guys better?
I think it's a little bit of both, Randy. I was talking to Dusty Blake, pitching coach, yesterday about Kyle Leahy and the leaps he's made. Dusty basically said, look, if you don't have a growth mindset, we don't want you around here. Because we want you to be better in June than you were in May. We want you to be better in July than you were in June. If you look at all the great players in this game, they're always striving and just hungry and desperate to be better, to look for that next step, to look for that next level. And you see that now with the Brendan Donovans and the Lars Nootbaars, and players rave over and over about, I used the line the other day, Nolan Arenado has a list of accomplishments longer than a CVS receipt. But yet he's still desperate, and he's clawing, and he's trying to get better, and he's taking ground balls 3 hours before the game. And that's kind of been infectious around this bunch. You look 4 hours before the game, Victor Scott's going through his routine to get ready for that night's game. They all have these routines. John Jay sits down with Victor Scott every single day and talks about what he did right on the bases, what he did wrong in center field. And there's an accountability there, and it's showing now.
You talk about Kyle Leahy, and you have a story out right now on MLB.com specifically about Kyle Leahy and the work that he's done with Dusty Blake. Can you just kind of give us a little bit more information on that for people who haven't read the story yet? Because it is interesting that Dusty Blake has been bullish about Kyle Leahy over the years.
Yeah. 2 years ago, the Cardinals exposed Kyle Leahy to waivers. All 29 other teams could have grabbed him. Last season, they sent him up and down 5 times. But Dusty Blake 2 years ago pounded the table and said, I'm telling you, if we stick with this guy, he could be the best arm in our bullpen. And sure enough, here he is now. But Dusty Blake changed the grip on his slider, which has gone from upper 80s to low 90s. He got him to add a sinker, which gives him something that goes to the right as opposed to all his stuff going to the left. Lefties are 2 for 31 against him. Bryce Harper didn't have a chance the other night. I mean, he never saw that slider come. And Dusty and Kyle Leahy throws 6 pitches. He can land all 6 for strikes. So it's really impressive what he's doing. He's got a 1.09 ERA. If you look at Baseball Savant, they have him listed as first in the league in breaking ball rate. They have him. He's top 2% overall in all the pitchers in the league. So his metamorphosis has been incredible, and a lot of it's because Dusty Blake stood by him and believed in him.
All right, John Denton, this team has won a lot. They've done it against lesser teams, but they're doing it with really good defense, arguably the best defense, really good fundamental offense. They're base running well. Those are the kind of things that Tony La Russa always used to say. He said, if you play a completely clean game and it's a close game, inevitably the other team will beat itself. Is this team good enough to play against some of the teams we're going to see in the next week or so? Obviously, Philly, Kansas City's playing really well. Detroit's playing really well. Are the Cardinals, because of the way they play, able to play with these teams?
Yeah, Randy, if this was like a home run spree where they were, in a hot stretch of hitting a bunch of home runs, that's not sustainable. But look at the way they're doing it. They lead the league in doubles. They're among the top in on base percentage. All these guys are getting on base. They're playing flawless defense. 6 straight games with 2 runs or less by the pitching staff. That's only been done longer twice in history, in Cardinal history. So they could actually, move up a spot today if 2 runs or less. The bullpen is off the charts. I think they're a 0.68 over this winning streak. So they're getting contributions from a lot of different ways. This is not just one player hitting a bunch of home runs or the team kind of going through a hot streak. This is what they've done from the start. They don't hit home runs, but they beat you with doubles. They beat you by getting on base. They beat you with a better bullpen because of Steven Matz and Kyle Leahy, and the starting staff has come around. So they're getting a lot of contributions from a lot of places. So it makes you think that this is kind of a sustainable model.
One thing that a lot of people, I think, are wondering, I saw this coming on the chat, so I wanted to ask you about this. Nolan Arenado, because, they tried to move him during the offseason. The trade deadline will be coming up here soon, but this team is playing really well together. I know that things could change, of course, right before the trade deadline. But I saw MLB Network talking about this the other day about maybe the Cardinals should add, because the division, the way it's looking right now, is winnable. And so would you add or subtract? Have you gotten any indication from the Cardinals on how they might somewhat approach the trade deadline and how they would kind of configure that with the runway?
Yeah, Brooke, baseball is one of these everyday things. They just want to get through today. Obviously, if the middle of July gets here and they're still in contention, the Cardinals' history says that they will add. It's what they've always done. 23 was kind of the first year that they had a fire sale. It still feels weird that they did that. It's all going to depend where they are in the middle of July. Now, if they fall off the pace, if they're 7 or 8 games out behind the Cubs, I could totally see them moving Phil Maton, moving Ryan Helsley, moving Nolan Arenado. But it's all going to depend on, can you make the playoffs? Can you catch the Cubs? You keep putting pressure on the Cubs and playing like they are now, John Mozeliak's going to be hard pressed to blow this thing up if you're in the race at the end of July.
I think one of the problems they would run into, John, and maybe winning will solve the problems, and they'll have an opportunity to get more fans in the stands. But right now, the Cardinals are only on pace for 2.3 million fans. In 2022, they had 3.3 million fans. You lose 1 million fans over 3 years, averaging about $50 a pop, coming for tickets, concessions, all those things. You lose $50 million over 3 years. I wonder how serious a buyer they can be, especially, and that doesn't even include the TV loss, the TV money loss.
Yeah, maybe, Randy, maybe they're not buyers, but maybe they're not sellers. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the way the offseason was. They signed one free agent, which was so weird, but they didn't blow it up. They didn't sell off a bunch of pieces, And part of that was because Sonny Gray said he wanted to come back, and Wilson Contreras said he wanted to come back. Maybe they're not big spenders at the deadline, but if they're in the race, maybe that keeps them from trading Ryan Helsley to the Phillies or trading Phil Maton to the Astros or something like that, or Arenado goes to the Dodgers as just another piece. Maybe they hang on to all those guys and really try to keep the heat on the Cubs and try to win the division. But it's all going to depend on where are they those last 2 weeks going into July. By the
way, we were talking earlier, and you brought up the Cubs, who are stealing like every base that's in front of them, and so are the Brewers. We were talking about when Herrera might get an opportunity to catch. You think maybe after the Royals series, when they play the Tigers, who don't run, and then a series after that they play Baltimore, you think he'll play Herrera catcher when they're playing against teams that don't run as much?
Yeah, that could be the case. I mean, Ali Marmol had said on Monday that he was going to catch today. Now, the rain out kind of changed that. It'll be interesting to see if maybe he catches one of the games today later on. But let's face it, the Cardinals want his bat in the lineup. Let's call it what it is. We all know he's a substandard thrower, but man, that bat is off the charts. I mean, he needs to be in the lineup 6 days a week, whether that's catching, whether that's DH. Who cares where he's playing? As long as he's hitting 6 days a week, Cardinal fans should be happy. I know that's what they've always wanted, but, if he's not that good of a thrower, if he's not that good at calling games, who cares if he hits 30 home runs if he's in the lineup 6 days a week? And this kid has like all-star potential with the bat. He really takes a good at bat. He hardly ever gets fooled. He swings for power. He hits for average. He can do it all. So get him in the lineup. However that has to happen, get him in the lineup 6 days a week.
He's fun to watch swing the bat. The Cardinals haven't had a lot of that lately, so that'll be pretty cool. So you're thinking we were supposed to start at what, 12:05? You're thinking maybe 25, 30-minute rain delay?
Yeah, looking at the forecast, I think it was 70% at noon and like 55% at 1 here local time.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's going to be cloudy all day. So, maybe by 1:30 or, St. Louis time, we can get this thing in. I know the rain has finally stopped. The Cardinal players, the Phillies players are out in the outfield throwing. but the tarp was still on the field when I came in to do the interview here. So we'll see. Maybe it starts on time, but it doesn't look likely.
Well, if it, at the very least, get some of those. We heard all about the cheesesteaks, so you get some of those Citizens Bank Ballpark cheesesteaks between games or during the delay.
There was a sign in the clubhouse. They were offering $1,000 to anybody who could eat 6 cheesesteaks today. So that was the bar has been set.
John, have a great time. We'll see you when the club is back home. Thank you so much.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Take care.
See you later. That's our buddy John Denton from MLB.com. He does such a great job covering the Cardinals, and a fun guy and a lot of good information there.
Six for $1,000.
6 for $1,000.
And I mean, I
sure
wonder how big. I'm sure that they're
a big old hoagie. Yeah, it's probably.
Do you
8
think
inch.
you could do 6?
No.
That would be a lot.
Back in the day, I could have, but not now.
For $1,000?
Oh, I'd try.
Yeah,
I would try, but I just don't think I could pull that off, unfortunately.
Yeah, after pregnancy, maybe. I just don't have enough room.
Not right now.
No, not enough room.
So a couple of things. Number one, we have Cards Hub 365 after both games today and tonight. So you'll be able to come back here to Sports Hub STL and join us for post-game coverage of the Cards and Phillies, both games of the doubleheader. So that will be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that. And I think you also need to know, because you are a sports fan, heck, if you're watching or listening or tuned in, you're a sports fan, you need to know about the STL Sports Show that's coming up. Brooke, were you aware of this? It's coming up here in St. Louis. Pretty amazing.
Oh, yes. I've heard about it.
Well, so it's the 2025 STL Sports Show, and it's going to take place at the Doubletree Hotel in Chesterfield on Friday, May 30th through Sunday, June 1st. And there's going to be autograph signings from Grant Fuhr and Ryan O'Reilly and Berkey and Armand Membo of the New York Football Jets and many more. Tons of vendors are going to be there with trading cards and memorabilia. Here's all you need to do. Go to stlsportshow.com to find out the schedule and all of the information. VIP packages and photo ops are also available, so you want to take advantage of those. And right now, when you use that code SHOW15, you can get 15% off of your tickets. So all you need to do is tell them that you heard about it from Sports Hub STL, and you can get 15% off tickets from Fuhr, O'Reilly, and Berkey with the code SHOW15. It's the 2025 STL Sports Show, Friday, May 30th through Sunday, June 1st at the Doubletree Hotel in Chesterfield. STLsportshow.com is the place to go. All right.
You said something in there that threw me off.
What's that?
And then I blanked on it.
Oh.
You forgot what it was?
It was, you said something that was
During the sports show?
Yeah, during that read, and I was like, how do you, oh God, what the heck was it?
I don't know.
I'm blanking on it now, damn it.
Well, if you think of it, just here you
I'm gonna have to re-listen to it.
Okay. Something threw you off. So
Either way,
you check out
go check out the St. Louis Sports Show.
Fuhr, O'Reilly, Berkey, Membo of the New York Football Jets.
That's a good lineup.
Because they call them the football giants.
Thank you. You said it again. You said New York Football Jets, and I was like, I don't think you have to do that.
You don't, but you don't have to call the New York Giants the football giants anymore.
So is this, I guess, was this a quirk you picked up on? Is this somebody else did this?
I think Berman does it.
Berman does that. Okay. I was like, this seems like something you would do. It also seems like something Chris Berman would do, but that's what it was. Yeah. You said New York Football Jets, and part of my brain went, wait, hold on a second.
By the way, how about Berman signing an extension through 2029 so that he can be at ESPN for 50 years?
That's incredible.
Yeah. I ran into him. He was in town for an event that I emceed last year, and we talked afterwards. And he said, how long have you been doing this? And I said, it was, I think, 40 years. And he said, you know what? We're survivors.
Yes, in this industry, you can make, especially at ESPN, that is, whew.
He's such a good, Berman and I, when ESPN, he used to do ESPN radio baseball. So he would come in, and he also did like the late night games on TV on the West Coast too. But when he would come in and do a radio game, we would always sit up in the press box together because he always wanted to pick my brain about what was going on with the Cardinals. Mm-hmm. What a nice guy Chris Berman is.
I would assume so. Yeah, it seems like it. And that's always great to hear when you think somebody is just based off of TV. Like if you only see the TV version of him, you're like, that seems like a great guy. And you hope they are behind the scenes. And that's good to hear that he is behind the scenes.
He's a good guy. Yeah. All right. Are we going to do the? Yeah, we already kind of did a Grim. Well,
we did do the Grim report. My Grim report was Pete Rose, but
a man died.
I see somebody stirring up some things in the chat.
A
So we could
hornet's
do
nest?
like a little secondary, because I see some people are trying to bring up Shohei Ohtani again. And if he was involved with Ipe and the gambling scandal, did you hear that voicemail? Was it a voicemail or was it a voice recording of when he
voice
pretended to be Shohei Ohtani? Ipe did. And his translator, and pretend to be Shohei Ohtani. That didn't sound anything like Shohei Ohtani.
No.
I fully believe, and maybe one day we'll discover more about this and I'll have egg on my face about it. But Shohei Ohtani was not involved with that whatsoever. I would put money on it.
This was a take it or leave it today on the TV show on Matrix Midwest. Take it or leave it. Pete Rose needed an interpreter.
A fall guy.
Get yourself a fall guy.
Get yourself a fall guy.
Yeah.
No,
I'm with
no
you, Brooke.
way.
I don't think I think that what happened to Shohei Ohtani was that he trusted somebody too much.
Yeah, and I'm just going to be completely honest. Seeing some athletes behind the scenes, a lot of them are not business guys. Like the
You're
money
100%
comes
right.
in, and it happens all the time where money gets mismanaged. It happens a lot with athletes where they just really they've been focusing on one thing their entire life, and it's not math, and it's not accounting. And so then they hire people, even people they trust, family members. We've seen a lot of athletes where they've been taken advantage of by family members who are managers or managing accounts, and they steal money from them. It happens a lot. So I don't doubt whatsoever that Ipe just took advantage of the situation of he had full access to Shohei Ohtani's accounts.
Yeah, people take advantage. That happened to the late Bob Forsch. His agent
Yeah.
robbed him dry here in St. Louis. And that will actually allow us to transition to our next subject, which is Bill Belichick and Jordon Hudson.
Oh, that's always an important
Do you
one.
think that she's taken advantage of his financial situation?
I think at this point that it's pretty clear that that has happened. So recently he was asked about, how things are going. It was on SportsCenter, right? That he was
Last
being
night, yep,
interviewed.
at the ACC media. Day.
Yeah. And so Bill Belichick was asked about his relationship with Jordon Hudson, and
I wonder
her
if she was
involvement. 100% she was there. She was off to the side where the camera couldn't see her this time. And he said, that's really off to the side. It's a personal relationship, and she doesn't have anything to do with UNC football.
You buy it? She was
No.
on the field. She was on the field in practice.
I don't think I've ever seen, and it was the way that she was on the field too, right?
Mhm.
Like, I don't think I've ever seen a wife or girlfriend of a coach.
Or
That-
player.
I've seen wives and girlfriends there at games or anything like that.
right.
Like I've seen that, but not like where they're on the field in that manner in which she was.
No. So I would respectfully disagree, maybe disrespectfully disagree with Coach Belichick that she doesn't have anything to do with UNC football. If she has as much to do with as she does with Bill Belichick, then she does have stuff to do with UNC football. Let me put it this way. Would somebody who doesn't have anything to do with UNC football be emailing other people within the department to talk about how they should interact with or deal with Coach Belichick?
It's a personal, and hasn't he also said that it's a business relationship too, because she is
Clearly.
involved business wise.
Yeah.
I think that she is involved business wise. Mason Windu, oh my gosh, is Jordon the first female D1 coach breaking that glass ceiling?
Also,
Could be.
I think there's some interesting things here for me, which is Pablo Torre finds out, reported that she might actually have been a year younger than originally reported when they met. She might actually have been 19, which then really makes me ask a couple questions of her former boyfriend, who was like a 60-year-old financial guy.
Did he die?
No,
Oh.
who talked about how
She's like a
how
black
smart she
widow.
was and how intelligent she was and how she's smarter than any other girl her age when he dated her. How long did they date? Considering if she met Bill at 19
Ew.
and this guy dated her before that,
Ew.
She is a
I've
30
got
for
some
30.
questions.
Yeah, 30 for 30 waiting to happen.
Ew.
Also,
That's awesome.
I just think
This is so great.
it's not. It's really
Did
not.
you see that she finished as the second runner-up in the Miss Maiden
And he was
pageant over the
there.
weekend? Yeah.
Yeah. Bill couldn't like pull some strings to get
Can
her
we-
the crown.
You would think so.
can we
yeah.
stop using the term second runner-up and just say third place?
No, it kind of sounds
Second
fancier.
runner-up counts
Yeah.
sounds too fancy.
It sounds fancier.
You got third place.
King Bash says Jordon Hudson looks like fake Ariel from The Little Mermaid, and Bill Belichick looks
Yes.
like Ursula. And that's what I'm
except
saying is like,
except the role where you're stealing something from somebody else is switched.
I just think that it looks ridiculous. It looks embarrassing. It's not as
So-
cool as he probably thinks
Okay,
it looks.
that was going to be my question because I believe this to be the case. I think Bill Belichick has become a caricature of himself.
He looks like he's not in control of his own life.
He does.
After everything, where everything was about him being a control freak and
Yeah.
everything was about what he was doing on the field, he was able to manage that brand identity so well for himself
Mhm.
for so long. And then you get to this point at his age at 73, where all of a sudden a 24-year-old or however old she is, 24-year-old is controlling his life and is over on the interviews saying, we're not going to answer that. Like, just all that kind of stuff. It makes you look like an idiot. And we talked about the recency bias. This is what people are going to remember. They're going to forget about your Patriots days and they'll
Mhm.
remember it a little bit, but they'll be like, don't you remember when he was dating that 24-year-old that was controlling his life? Now that is going to be the story always with Bill Belichick.
Wouldn't you love to just have a conversation, get some truth serum into his 38-year-old defensive coordinator who's also his son?
Yeah.
Find out what he thinks.
I bet his son's not saying anything because he wants to keep his job.
That's why you need to get truth
That's-
serum into him. You can't.
Yeah.
You aren't going to get the truth out of him.
I want to see what that is for
Yep.
sure.
Cole Bassett's left foot. Belichick is living the best life ever, kind of like a stray cat roaming the neighborhood. That's right,
Terrible.
and making $10 million a year to do it. Yeah, he's got
Oh
it.
my
That's not
gosh.
bad. I guess the $10 million a year probably is going into her real estate empire.
Yeah, her little portfolio that she's working on right now.
Number one Blues fan. Does he have a little dementia going on, and is that why she's speaking for him? Very well could be the case. Very well could be.
He's not known as being charismatic anyways, so it's
No.
hard to tell in the interviews, but he's very just, I don't know, like it just seems so out of character for him. And he has to be aware. People are making it very aware to him about the narrative surrounding him.
Yeah.
I can't believe that he doesn't care a little bit about it.
But maybe if there's dementia kicking in, maybe he
And
doesn't care.
He's
Maybe
just like,
maybe
this woman's taking care of me and
she's-
that's fine.
She's probably with him 24/7 and is telling him everything is great. And he
And
probably is
people love
believing that.
you.
Yeah.
People love you. And Bub says, is this
Oh,
elder abuse?
You guys.
Yes.
So I'm at Mobile on the Run yesterday,
Uh-huh.
and there's an older woman, 80s,
Okay.
putting $100 bills into a Bitcoin machine with a guy with a Middle Eastern accent. And it was the name on the phone said Alex Kopic. There's no way this guy's name was Alex Kopic. And I was trying to stop her. Me and another guy were saying, do you know this person that you're sending the money to? And she said, I know him well enough. And I said, do you know what you're buying here or what you're getting for this? She said, I know, don't bother me. And she's trying to figure out how to put these $100 bills into a Bitcoin machine. I have no idea what was going on, but I can guarantee you she was being scammed. And I'm trying to help her. She's in her 80s at least. With
Well,
like
she told you to get away,
Yep.
so there's only so much you can do.
I know, and she's got like an envelope full of $100 bills, and just pouring them into a bit machine. And she's got this guy on the other line trying to explain to her how to put the
do
money
it?
into the Bitcoin machine.
Somebody's grandma's getting taken advantage of. Check in on your grandmas today, because
Yeah,
that's not okay.
I felt so bad for her, but there was nothing I could do.
Well, and she was
I
also
tried.
kind of mean to you. It sounds
She was,
like,
yeah.
and you
She was,
tried.
yeah.
Have you ever watched 90 Day Fiance? It's one of my favorite TV shows.
No.
It sounds like that. So 90 Day Fiance is as it sounds, where you have that 90-day trial period
Mhm.
of making sure that everything is good. I think it's something like legally, like in the US, to be able to get, I don't know, whatever. And I love the show for the characters, but there's a lot of people who are Americans that are getting scammed by people from other countries where they think they're falling in love. And there's a lot of older women who fall for these really young guys. And you're like, you don't think that maybe something's going on there?
Yeah,
That's the premise of
right.
90 Day Fiance.
Okay, yeah, interesting. It's-
So maybe
Well,
that's what was going on there.
And so the reason that I brought that up, because I was going to ask you guys whether or not I was doing the right thing. And the response so far is 100% that I was, that in trying to help her and say something. And I did get a recommendation, call the police next time. Yes, absolutely a good idea. But I felt like I was kind of interfering in her business, but at the same time, I knew she was being scammed. So I felt like, as a responsible member of society, I felt like I should.
And here's the thing is that you did try. Like a lot of people are saying, you were doing the right thing. It's a tough situation. So you were checking on her, but past that, it is hard because she's an adult and she can make her own decisions. And if she's telling you to get away and she's not giving you any more information, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
Brooke, we have a update on the chat that you might want to look at right now.
Is it this could be I work on that you work on that show? I love that show. I need to get Randy to watch
we got to get in. Okay.
at least one episode because
I've watched
it's
one
one of
episode
my
of that show
favorite.
because it's
Okay.
it's so messy.
Isn't
it's
it
so
crazy?
messy.
Because you're like, wait a minute, how do these people not know that they're getting scammed? But I
like
have
this.
heard too of, and I hope this wasn't the situation with the lady that you encountered, where they even like, make it seem like that you owe money to somebody, or they've gotten so much more advanced where
Oh,
have you
yeah.
seen the AI news stories where it's like
Mhm.
AI where they'll find like a family member's like voice and
Yep.
then AI change it to make it seem like they're in distress, they need help. And
That's what
that
I thought
stuff is
this
so
was.
scary to me.
That's what I thought this was, but she wouldn't say, she wouldn't explain at all what this money was going to. So, it is.
You tried.
I tried.
You tried to do your good deed.
Yep.
At least you checked on her.
Yeah.
Some people just kind of watch and laugh
Yeah. So,
nowadays.
Anyway, so if you know somebody named Alex Kopic with what appears to be a Middle Eastern accent, probably a scam.
I feel
Sorry,
so bad
Alex.
for her.
And the name Alex Kopic was on her phone. I was being very nosy.
You were trying to help.
Yeah.
So it's fine if you're being nosy
Yeah.
if you're trying
Trying
to help.
to
It
help, yeah.
offsets the nosiness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Matthew, did you want to weigh in here?
Well, I want to throw out one thing before we finish this topic because we've gotten a lot of this information because of the great reporting from Pablo Torre Finds Out.
Mhm.
And
Maybe you can find out about this lady.
well, I think some people have latched onto this story and been like, why are you doing such investigative reporting on stories like this?
Perfect.
And I will say, Pablo Torre Find Out just tweeted out an update on a story they did about a Cowboys fan who was on death row and the reason that he got convicted is because they used hypnotic forensics, where they literally hypnotized a witness to get the real story out of them.
Wow.
And so he's doing a whole expose about what happened in the trial, why it's junk science, why it should call into question him being on death row. This is the other kind of stuff that Pablo Torre Finds Out is doing investigative level stuff. And the reporter who did it is a writer for Meadowlark, ESPN, a bunch of different pieces. So, I mean, he's not screwing around. It's just incredible to me that there's a show now that does this kind of investigative stuff, and there is more stuff out there than just them breaking into the Jordon Hudson thing. David Fleming, the reporter, now for Pablo Torre Finds Out, who's diving into the story about the Cowboys fan. Just incredible stuff the show does, and it's good that we have an arm that does these kind of stories, and it's a good thing that we get serious stuff and we get fun stuff that Brooke can sink her teeth into every show.
Yes. Pablo is doing a fantastic job. I like how he's not dropping it whatsoever.
No.
Pablo is like doing deep dives on this and follow-ups every single day, I feel like, on Jordon Hudson.
And I think for those of us that we might have a little bit too much time on our hands, but it's fun. His bio on the X account, Pablo Torre Finds Out, is follow Pablo Torre down the rabbit hole. That's literally what he's doing. And it's just fun. And as you
Great
mentioned
rabbit
last week,
hole,
it's not, he's not investigating what's going on in the federal government. He's investigating things that are interesting, but I guess a Cowboy fan being on death row, it's somewhat serious. But he's finding out good stuff. You know what else you want to find out is how you can make a little bit of money. I got a recommendation for you. It's called DraftKings Pick 6. That's right. How about the Redbirds playing twice today against Philadelphia? Plenty of opportunities to make a couple of bets. You can make up to 6 bets at DraftKings Pick 6, higher or lower. That's where you're going. Find out if an athlete, determine in your own mind whether an athlete is going to go higher or lower on a particular stat. And when you do that, if they have more or less and you get it right, you can win cash. Pick 6 available in Missouri and Illinois, in California and Texas and Georgia and more. And you can take advantage of your sports knowledge, whether it's hockey or basketball or baseball. Just cash in your sports knowledge. And if you're a new player at DraftKings Pick 6, all you need to do is use that promo code right there, STL Sports, and get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly on just a $5 entry. It's DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
There we are. Hey, Brooke, I wanted to mention this. People can go to my Twitter page at Randy Karraker, and you can retweet it. But I have the address for Jason Tatum's foundation. There is no athlete that rides or dies with St. Louis more. We love Jason Tatum, right? He's just great and had the surgery yesterday, and he's going to miss a lot of time. And I think he'd like to receive cards from us. So I have it up on my Twitter page, the address for his foundation, so that we can make him feel a little bit better. The address is Jason Tatum Foundation, P.O. Box 300061, St. Louis, Mo 63130, and they'll get him the get well cards. But I hope that he is overwhelmed by get well cards from St. Louis.
I think that's a great idea because Jason Tatum makes it really clear that he's from St. Louis, comes back, does a lot of charity work here in town. He has his golf tournament, which is coming up soon, correct?
Yeah, I think it's in August.
Is it in August? Yeah. So soon-ish, just a little bit down the line. But Jason Tatum always involves St. Louis with a lot of different things that he does. I mean, he has St. Louis tattoos. When he releases shoes, they have a St. Louis edge to him. So he is St. Louis through and through. I think that we should go and support him. That's a great idea, Randy.
So thank you. And so I'm going to get my card out to him today. What do you got going on today? There's a lot of Cardinal baseball.
There is a lot of Cardinals baseball. Now, I did get an update from John Denton, who we spoke to earlier, and he did say Tarp is still on the field and the players are gone. It's lightly raining again. That's what he said. I think John Denton, there's nothing worse for the writers. And it is great that they get to travel and all that stuff, but having to sit around and wait for the rain. Oh my gosh, what is this?
Oh, this is beautiful.
What do you mean?
That's Mary Likens. We're all on death row, but we don't know the date. Thank God. I love that.
Oh.
That is fabulous.
She accidentally sent the most perfect tweet for this show. It all gets back to food and death.
Food and death. Those
as soon as she put it up there.
The 2 show rules for the Randy Karraker show.
I knew as soon as she sent it that Randy was going to have a field day with that.
That's a beautiful thing. Thank you, Mary.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. We liken that.
Oh. Womp, womp. Womp, womp.
So anyway, I am going to, in addition to baseball today, this afternoon starts Roundup at the Register at Schnucks to benefit Folds of Honor.
Oh, nice.
So when you go to Schnucks over the course of the next couple of weeks until Memorial Day, if your bill is something like $14.18, they say, I don't even know if they'll ask you anymore, but say they'll have a sign there. Round up to $15, and the money will go to scholarships for the families of fallen military and first responders. It's a really cool mission that I'm with Folds of Honor, and I would love to have you get involved by going to Schnucks and rounding up at the Register for the next couple of weeks.
That'd be awesome. That is great to see.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going to be involved with between games today.
Nice. Busy day for you.
Yeah, I don't mind.
No. You're always giving back.
Busy day for you, or are you just going to go lay on the couch?
I'm going to go lay on the couch.
Get out a girl.
Probably watch some 90 Day Fiance if there's not any baseball happening. But yeah, busy day of just getting things ready, getting a massage. So that will be nice. If you see me in my neighborhood, I'll probably be doing sprints. I was doing that yesterday and I felt like I pulled something. So
you were not.
I really was. It was the funniest thing ever. I'll have David film it next time, and maybe we'll play it just so we can all laugh at my expense of seeing my big belly trying to do sprints. So that's where we're at right now in the pregnancy.
All right.
2 things. One, actually, do you want a weird Jason Tatum fact, or do you want something about the City game tonight?
Oh, I want both.
Okay. Bill Belichick, excuse me, Bill Simmons, same thing. Bill Simmons yesterday started his podcast with Zach Lowe, telling Zach Lowe that he spent a lot of time researching whether or not wearing Timberlands can cause deterioration that then leads to Achilles injuries.
Oh, no.
Because Jason Tatum likes to wear Timberland boots.
Sense.
and he just had his Achilles rupture. So
Did he?
people in
have
Boston are
Did he have? Did he come to a conclusion?
Did he come to a conclusion?
not a good one.
Oh, okay.
That's one thing that I just that's out in the world.
Fun fact.
This is what happens when great players get hurt. And Jason, get well soon. I hope you love the cards we send you, but keep wearing Timberlands. You look fantastic.
By the way, I wonder if I didn't get to hear Colin Cowherd yesterday. I wonder if Colin Cowherd predicted that the Knicks would come back or the Celtics would come back and win now because they play so much better without Jason.
Did you guys get to discuss that?
We did, yeah.
We did.
Okay, good. What a
with
way
the premise
of thinking, huh?
Yeah.
The premise being, you usually don't get to see hot takes tested so fast.
Right.
Now you get to. My other thing is, of course, it is the Derby Q tonight down at Energizer Park. St. Louis City takes on Sporting Kansas City in the second of, I guess they play 3 times every year, but it's almost always 2. They seem to play 3 every year. Anyhow, they got smoked in Kansas City earlier this season, 2-0. And this is an extremely pivotal match for St. Louis City. This is the first of 4 matches in 14 days. They also had a match just 4 days ago. One of those matches is U.S. Open Cup, but the bottom line is 4 matches in 14 days. Olaf Melberg will not be on the sideline today because he has been suspended after getting his 3rd yellow card. So he's passed it over to Arzudin, I want to say, Valentic, who is the coach who came over with him. So that'll be interesting. Obviously, Olaf
if they score 4
plan
goals?
everything. I'm not sure how to react if they score 4 goals. We will cross that bridge when we come to it. It's a huge game for St. Louis City. It really is put up or shut up times.
Yeah.
Things are starting to get a little tight.
Mhm.
And if they don't start taking points away, especially in a home match against your big rival, things are going to get tricky in late May, early June.
I heard that that's the case. Thank you, Matthew. Great work as always. That is our producer, audio video engineer, the one, the only Matthew Rocchio. Brooke, did you have fun today?
Yes.
This was great.
It
Great to have you
was,
here. So
yes.
this might be Brooke's last week. We don't know, but we're kind of
Probably.
thinking because the baby is coming along that she's going to have to actually take care of the baby.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, it is.
That is important. I think I have to.
Oh.
I've heard that the mother has to be around the baby
So
in
she
the
can-
beginning of life.
Yeah.
She can run
Yeah.
sprints while pregnant, but she can't host a show while with a baby. What the
Come
heck?
on. Come on. We thank you for being a part of the show. Thank you so much. We will see you tomorrow morning at 10:02. Don't forget, Cards Hub 365 after both games today here on Sports Hub STL.